Good morning, everyone. Paul Rupel here with Fox 29 News Now. Hope your Thursday's off to a great start. We're following a lot of developments in the immigration situation and the federal government partial shutdown. So we're going to get you to a couple of events that are ongoing at the moment. First, let's get you, this is a report by Doug, our Washington correspondent, Doug Luzader, about the status of the shutdown this morning. Let's watch that first, and then we'll get you to a few live events that are ongoing, as well as remarks from the president before he left for Texas to visit the border wall. Here is Doug Luzader from Washington, D.C.
Ray of hope on Capitol Hill.
What is that ray, Doug?
I am the ray of hope on Capitol Hill.
Wow.
Well, thank goodness for you.
Yeah.
How about that?
Ray Donovan.
No, actually, the ray of hope on Capitol Hill is this deal that is kind of being bandied about right now with some members of Congress. It's kind of a bigger deal on immigration, but both sides are going to have to give to make it work. With the president preparing to head to the Texas border today, it appears that talks at the highest level have stalled, to say the least.
He asked Speaker Pelosi, will you agree to my wall? She said no. And he just got up and said, then we have nothing to discuss, and he just walked out.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi said that even if he gave her what she wanted, she would never agree to the border security priorities that we have on the table, and that was unacceptable.
But hold on, even though talks broke down at the White House yesterday, the president suggested something was cooking.
I would love to see a big immigration bill where we really take care of the situation. I know you want to. Everybody wants to. Who wouldn't want to?
A big deal might include border wall funding in exchange for some kind of fix for illegal immigrants who came here as children. And in fact, an effort is now underway on Capitol Hill to make that happen. But that could take some time if it happens at all. And tomorrow, this partial government shutdown will be tied for the longest ever.
It's in its infant stages, no commitment by anybody, but I'm somewhat hopeful that maybe there's a way to get what the president wants in a fashion that would do the least amount of damage to the country as possible.
On the other hand, the president may use this trip to Texas today to declare a national emergency at the border and use that then as a pretext to begin border wall construction on his own, although he says that his preference is to go through Congress, and that's still a possibility here. Mike and Alex.
Yeah, faint, but it is a possibility. All right, Doug, we'll see you tomorrow. Of course, federal workers are supposed to get their checks tomorrow. That is not going to happen now.
So because it's not going to happen, a lot of them are trying to figure out how are they going to, make ends meet. Yeah. And then on the other side, too, for people who are not necessarily working, but the effects on the general public. So it's creating some issues. The FDA, they can't do routine food inspections because of the shutdown. But the agency is working to bring back about 150 employees to inspect riskier foods like cheese, infant formula, and produce.
Which they have to do constantly.
Yeah. However, meat and poultry inspections are continuing because the FDA does not oversee those. And then there's this. Employees of the U.S. Coast Guard, they got some tips on how they can stay afloat without a paycheck during the shutdown.
Afloat, I got it.
Yeah, so there was actually a recommendation that was sent out to employees saying, hey, why don't you do things like have a garage sale or tutor someone, maybe babysit or pet sitting or house sitting. Their situation is unlike other military services because their funding comes from the Department of Homeland Security, which has been affected by the shutdown, while others get their funding through the Defense Department. So maybe they'll be babysitting.
It's the Coast Guard.
Of course, a lot of people had a reaction to that.
So this was an official suggestion by the Coast Guard? Babysitting. Oh, my God. Or a garage sale. Let's make some cupcakes and sell them on the street. All right, Sue.
Lemonade stand?
That was our conversation on Good Day Philadelphia with Washington correspondent Doug Luzader, and talking a little bit about the impact of this shutdown. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is speaking at this moment in Washington, D.C., holding a weekly news conference. Let's take you there live and hear what she has to say about the ongoing shutdown and the president's reaction to it.
Immigration and trade in those regions.
the positive, shall we say, almost technological wall that can be built is what we should be doing. I don't even know if the president wants the wall. I think he just wants to debate on the wall, and he's having some difficulty with it because now, would you think a person has confidence in the strength of his own arguments with those he's debating with or with the American people? If you have confidence in your own position, why would you say, I have to shut down government so that people will heed what I am saying? It's a bad thing. Yesterday, we also had legislation on the floor to stop the Republican assault on the Affordable Care Act. 192 Republicans voted to undermine the pre-existing condition benefit, to lifetime limits, the ban on lifetime limits. They voted to stop the expansion of Medicaid. They voted to impede the health insurance affordability tax credits, and, of course, the benefit of kids up to 26 years old being on their families' policies and other things. Only 3 Republicans voted against that. And that was a vote for us to continue our legal argument against the case that the Republicans have brought. On the campaign trail, they said, "Oh yeah, we're for the pre-existing condition." We are. 192 of them voted against it yesterday. So, in any case, just to go recap in terms of the soap opera that the president's petulance and obstinance is creating. We all support border security. We take an oath to protect and defend the American people and to defend the Constitution as we do so. And that's what this debate is about. There's a better way, a more effective way to protect, to secure our borders, and that is what the debate should be about. And if you believe in your arguments and you're convinced that you're right and you think you can persuade others, you don't have to shut down government to strengthen your hand. Any questions?
Madam Leader?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is there any world in which you would support, a world in which Democrats would support a broader deal in the context of reopening government? Would you support DACA as part of this reopening, for example?
Well, we haven't had that discussion. What we're talking about now is just the president's insistence on a wall. We need to have comprehensive immigration reform. The Democrats and Republicans know that, and that is about dreamers and their families and the rest. We have said that we're going to protect the dreamers. That is very popular in the country. We can do that very quickly. It has Republican support in the Congress and certainly in the country. But comprehensive immigration reform is what this debate should be about. And quite frankly, when the president talks about this being a national security issue, no, it really isn't. It's about a policy that is discriminatory as to where people are coming into this country. So, yeah, no, absolutely, we always have stood ready to discuss comprehensive immigration reform and, of course, the dreamers in the meantime.
Are you willing to have those conversations before the government's reopened? Are you willing to have those conversations now?
We have been having conversations. We don't want to be a backdrop for the president to stomp the table and get up and walk out. I think he thought we were going to stay there when he left. He got up, we got up. So that we've been having these conversations. Our staff all weekend, Saturday, Sunday, have been engaged in these conversations. The president just keeps upping the ante. In fact, I said to him, "You're moving the goalposts so many times, they're out of the stadium." Yes, Nancy.
Have you offered several $1 billion for other border security measures if you're not willing to do a wall? And what has the White House reaction been to that?
Well, don't think of this as normal. Don't think of this as normal because I say the goalpost keeps getting moved. But what we did give the president, the White House, is exactly what the Homeland Security Department asked for. in the budget. But they've moved the goalpost.
Yeah. This morning. No, Democrats are calling this a manufactured crisis.
Yes, it is.
Is a concern. Now, would you essentially say the same thing to say Corporal Ronald Singh's family, or do those families who...
I'm sorry, what are you saying there?
Would you say that this is a manufactured
Right,
crisis
but what's the next word?
to a Corporal Ronald Singh's family who ended up losing him to a illegal immigrant who ended up shooting him over in your state? Would you say this to families who had lost relatives to heroin overdoses because obviously the drug 90% of the time came from Mexico? What would you say to families like that?
Well, what I would say to families like that is what I say to the president regularly. These are tragic situations. There's a tragic situation at the border. 2 little children died in the custody of the Border Patrol. But the plural of anecdote is not data. And as painful and horrible, one death is more than we should be able to bear, whether it's the corporal or whether it's the children. But the fact is we have to have public policy that secures our border. And what the president is proposing will not eliminate those possibilities.
Madam Speaker, the president this morning suggested that he may declare a national.
Yeah.
To you, is this a possible way out of this standoff with the president? Or how would the House react? How would you react if you were to go that route?
Well, if and when the president does that, you'll find out how we will react. But I'm not going to that place now. But I think the president will have problems on his own side of the aisle for exploiting the situation in a way that enhances his power. But not to go there. Let's see what he does. Right now, there is a path. Open up government. Let's have this discussion on where we can agree on the best ways to protect our borders, to secure our borders, to do so in a way that honors our values. And the president's going to the border. Now he's saying maybe the trip isn't necessary. He goes and comes. But let me just close by saying this. Clearly, there's a disparity of shared values here. In terms of respecting the dignity and worth of everyone, being concerned about every death that happens because we live in an imperfect world, and that's very sad. But it is not a justification for having more children die in custody or be separated from their families. We're even going into that discussion, taking babies out of the arms of their parents. As the mother of 5 and grandmother of 9, I find that appalling. They find it normal. We talk about what he might do tomorrow, or is it today? Maybe does this at the border. I think he's going to have to answer to his own party on usurping that much power. But again, I'm not going down a path until we see what it is he's willing to do. But it's unfortunate because there's an opportunity cost here of this money that he keeps increasing the amount of money, increasing the amount of beds, increasing the obstacles to finding a solution, because I don't think he really wants a solution. I think he loves the distraction that this is from his other problems, and that's most unfortunate. It's a luxury our country can't afford under any circumstance. It's certainly a luxury we can't afford when he has shut down government, takes pride in it, and says months or years. That's not the action of a responsible president of the United States. So let's see what he decides to do, and when he does. And let me just close as a Californian by saying how shocking it is that this president would say he's going to withhold funding to meet the disaster assistance, disaster needs of people in California. Ironically, most of those fires, except for maybe part of what happened earlier in Santa Rosa, most of those fires took place in rural California. The votes he did get in California were in rural California. So we're saying to him, if you think you're punishing our state, you're punishing your own voters. And besides which, unless you have a different definition of what a disaster is and the needs for assistance, you have no right to withhold those funds. And I look to my Republican colleagues from California to stop looking the other way in the president's irresponsible behavior nationally. But they know people died, communities were wiped out, and they're just cavalier about it because of the President of the United States. Thank you.
One last question.
No, that's it. Okay,
thank you. Thank you.
Again, that was House Speaker Nancy Pelosi speaking at her weekly news conference, reacting to some of what the president has had to say about the border wall and partial government shutdown funding. Meanwhile, in the Senate, let me show you a picture from the Senate there. That's Illinois Senator Dick Durbin. In the Senate right now, the Democrats are trying to get a vote on a bill that the Senate actually passed a couple weeks ago, a funding measure. I believe it was from the Republican Party at the time, but it was passed to fund certain segments of the government and a continuing resolution to keep the funding in place for a little while, keep the funding going. And there's a bit of a debate here occurring between both Senator Schumer and Senator McConnell have spoken on the floor this morning. Senator McConnell making the case that there are actually two shutdowns in place. He says that there's a shutdown underway in the Senate where Democrats are refusing to vote on many measures that don't have to do with the shutdown, and so he's making that point. And Democrats are trying to get the measure that passed the House on the first day of the new legislative session to the floor, or one of the measures that already passed the Senate to fund the government before the president decided that he was going to hold to his requirement of $5.7 billion for border wall funding. Let's listen in for a little bit to Senator Durbin talking here on the floor of the Senate.
Work today with no pay and won't receive a paycheck over the weekend. Many of us will travel home over the weekend, go through an airport. We'll go through the TSA inspection, as all passengers do, to make sure that we travel safely on airplanes. It's tough to look those TSA agents in the eye because we know what's happening. Many of them barely making enough money to get by paycheck to paycheck won't receive a paycheck this weekend. I called a group of them together at the O'Hare Airport on Tuesday. We held a press conference and I asked four of them, explain what this means to you. And they talked about being unable to come up with the money to pay for gasoline to drive back and forth to work 39 miles each way. They talked about the difficulties that families are going to face when it comes to daycare for their children. What are they going to do with their kids if they're coming to work for no pay and they can't pay the daycare service? And those who have mortgage and rental payments, some real consequences can follow. If you fail to make that mortgage payment on a timely basis, you may face an increase in interest rate on your mortgage. You may even face a downgrade of your credit rating. That's the real world for people who don't live in the White House. That's the real world for the victims of this prideful shutdown, which President Trump believes is in the best interest of this country. He's wrong. It's in the best interest of this country to open this government. It's in the best interest of Democrats and Republicans to sit down together and work out our differences when it comes to border security. We're all dedicated to border security. We just see it differently. We've got to find middle ground to come to a conclusion on this important issue. The last point I want to make is this. I am concerned that the majority leader, the Republican leader, Senator McConnell, has made it clear that he's waiting for a permission slip from President Trump to be the leader of the United States Senate. We are a separate and proud branch of government. We are given authority under this Constitution, which the President does not have. We do not wait for a permission slip from him to exercise that constitutional authority. The votes to pass these appropriation bills, I believe, are on the floor of the Senate today, and that is what has led Senator McConnell to the conclusion that he wouldn't dare call the bill. I think there are enough Republican senators who've spoken to me privately who are ready to step forward and say, end this mindless shutdown. They are ready to vote for the spending bills. Will it reach 67 to override a presidential veto? It just might do that. But let's test it by being the Senate under the Constitution, not by waiting for a permission slip from President Trump to exercise the constitutional responsibilities which each of us swore to uphold when we became members of this important body. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Connecticut.
Mr. President, my colleague from Illinois is absolutely right. The votes are there to pass these 6 bills. The majority leader, in effect, is acting as a buffer for the president. He is not serving this body because he knows that his own members would vote for it and vote to reopen the government. And that is because they are hearing the American people tell them, as they are telling us, reopen the government. That was the message that Senator Schumer delivered. It is simple, direct. It is true. The American people want the government reopened. And they know we have disagreements all the time. We disagree about policy and politics and proposals and legislation. But we don't shut down the government simply because we disagree. The government continues to do its work and serve the American people, even as we have disagreements. And so our friends on the other side, the Republican leadership, are complicit in this shutdown by refusing to permit us to do our duty and our work, which is to consider and pass legislation that will keep the government serving the people of the United States. And if the president vetoes those bills, there may well be enough votes here to override them. That's our job as well. And the reason that the American people want us to reopen the government is that they know that the crisis here is one that Donald Trump has made himself. It is a manufactured crisis involving dedicated public service who are missing paychecks, taxpayers denied critical government services, economic hardship for small businesses and low-income Americans. It is a crisis that is spreading. It is not a crisis at the border in security that the president supposedly is witnessing as we speak here. There is a humanitarian crisis at the border, which is also of Donald Trump's making. But the broader crisis throughout this country will affect our economy, our education system, our transportation, and the real security of this country, which is our ability to help each other. I've looked at those folks in the faces, most recently at Food Share. Day before yesterday, our food bank in Connecticut, which will soon be unable to meet the challenges and needs of the food insecure in Connecticut, because the commodities distribution program will be crippled. Their costs in transportation and storage will be overwhelming and unmet. Children and seniors will begin to go hungry because their reserves will be exhausted by the end of this month. I've spoken to the Coast Guard members who will be unpaid. Alone among our military services, unfairly, unfortunately, unacceptably, they will be unpaid. We know in Connecticut the value of our Coast Guard as a military branch of our government. We're home proudly to the Coast Guard Academy. Over 2,000 active duty service members, cadets, and civilian employees are feeling the direct effects of this Trump shutdown. In reality, it's a Trump lockout, not a shutdown. He is locking out so many dedicated workers in our federal government, but the Coast Guard is continuing to work. It's the only branch of the military that isn't guaranteed pay during this Trump shut down because, by a quirk of history, it is now part of the Department of Homeland Security, not the Pentagon. These active duty Coast Guard members based in New Haven and New London and across the country are continuing to protect our nation's security, continuing to rescue Americans at sea, continuing to interdict drugs that threaten our nation, and they are going unpaid. And that's why a bipartisan group of senators, and I want to thank Senators Thune and Cantwell and others, have introduced legislation to pay them during this Trump shutdown and any other shutdown going forward. And I call on the Senate leadership to immediately approve this bill and allow it for a vote. Our military members in the Coast Guard deserve better, but so do all of the homeowners of this nation who are seeking mortgages and must put those efforts on hold. So do the community development block grant projects that create jobs and economic growth. So too do law enforcement, essential to our security, who are going untrained. Food safety inspections have been suspended. Housing safety inspections, like the ones at Barber Gardens in Connecticut and Infield Apartments, have stalled. Breweries, like many in Connecticut, and I'm hoping to visit a number tomorrow, are unable to deliver their products to market and onto store shelves. The national parks have been left unsupervised. Last week, the Hartford Courant highlighted the story of Brian Krampovitis. He's a resident of West Haven and an air traffic controller at Bradley International Airport. A number of air traffic controllers are here in Washington, D.C., and they will be outside this building later today. He is continuing to work, but he told the Hartford Courant, quote, "I'm a single father of my daughter, and she relies on me to be her sole provider. I have a home and mortgage. It's a hard time to be in. I'm forced to continue to go to work or face the possibility of losing my job," end quote. If the federal government is still closed at the time of his next scheduled pay, he will receive a $0 paycheck. Like him, so many of these federal workers are living paycheck to paycheck, and they will be without that paycheck. But the effect will be on Americans as a whole. The president continues to divide us with rhetoric that is distorted and divisive, with misleading, malign mendacity. I'm reminded of the sign that I saw on TV, "Stop Truth Decay." The president should stop truth decay as he visits the border today. And he should recognize that there is no crisis in security at the border. It is manufactured by him. The idea that drugs are imported across the border is correct, but it is at the ports of entry. The idea that terrorists are coming across the border is factually absurd. In fact, the 3,700 figure that the president broached has been completely debunked. The idea that a wall will be effective or practical has been abandoned by members of his own administration, who have recognized that a wall from sea to shining sea simply is impossible and impractical. So we are left with a vanity project, an applause line in the president's campaign that has become a wall to progress. It is a wall to progress only in the president's mind. everybody in this body knows that there is a path forward to reopen the government. That's what the American people want. Reopen the government, adopt the bills that are necessary for these agencies to go back to work, and reopen the Department of Homeland Security as well while we debate those disagreements that we have, and do our job here. The Congress must do its job and send to the President the bills that are necessary to reopen the government and save America from this manufactured, unnecessary, unacceptable crisis that has come to us and our country from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Again, there you hear Democrats making the case on the Senate floor that there should be a vote on some of the bills that are coming before the Senate that would fund the government again, partially should fund the government or fund certain portions for different periods of time to continue the border wall discussion, the border security discussion. You hear some common themes, and obviously Democrats disagree that there's a crisis at the border. There are arguments to be made on both sides of that discussion. But they're also taking some common themes in their commentary, calling it a vanity wall, a memorial for the president, saying that a lot of common language being used in the discussions that are occurring. I want to get you a video from earlier this morning. This was President Trump outside the White House before he departed for Texas, where he'll be visiting the border wall today. Let's get you that. I'm going to get that clip dialed up right now. Here is the president earlier this morning. Of course, he's headed to the border, as I mentioned. He's going to the U.S.-Mexico border, and it comes amidst this partial government shutdown rooted in funding for his proposed border wall. Here are the president's remarks this morning outside the White House.
We're going to the border. Just spoke to some of my friends in Arizona. We have tremendous support. The Republicans are extremely united. They all want to see something happen, but they're extremely united. And I don't think I've ever seen unity like this in the Republican Party. The media, which I call the opposition party, a lot of the media, in coordination with the Democrats, they're not talking about the Democrats folding. For instance, this morning a number of people came out and said you do need very strong border security, and that includes a wall or whatever it is. A number of Democrats said that, but people don't like to report on it. We have tremendous unity in the Republican Party. It's really a beautiful thing to see. I don't think there'll be any breakaway because they know we need border security and we have to have it. And the only way you're going to have border security, there's only one way. You can have all the technology in the world. I'm a professional in technology. But if you don't have a steel barrier or a wall of some kind, strong, powerful, you're going to have human trafficking, you're going to have drugs pouring across the border, you're going to have MS-13 and the gangs coming in, and we've done record apprehensions. We're doing a great job, but we need help. If we have the wall, we could have far fewer people working in terms of border security and doing an even better job. So if we had the wall, we could have a tremendous saving. I really believe the steel barrier or wall would pay for itself every 3 or 4 months, and maybe even better than that in terms of overall. So that's it. Just a couple of things, because I know the fake news likes to say it. When during the campaign, I would say Mexico's going to pay for it. Obviously, I never said this, and I never meant they're going to write out a check. I said they're going to pay for it. They are. They are paying for it with the incredible deal we made called the United States, Mexico, and Canada USMCA deal. It's a trade deal. It has to be approved by Congress. It probably will be, other than maybe they even hold that up because they want to have, they want to do as much harm as they can, only because of the 2020 presidential election. So Mexico is paying for the wall indirectly. And when I said Mexico will pay for the wall in front of thousands and thousands of people, obviously they're not going to write a check, but they are paying for the wall indirectly many, many times over by the really great trade deal we just made. Congress has to approve the deal.
Are you going to go to Davos or are you going to cancel it?
Well, I intended to go and speak in front of the world financial community in Davos. That's still on, but if the shutdown continues, which is in a while from now, but if the shutdown continues, I won't go. I had planned to go. It's been very successful when I went. We have a great story to tell. We have the best job numbers we've ever had in many ways. Certainly with African Americans, with Hispanic, with Asian Americans. And overall, we have the best job numbers in at least 50 years. We have a lot of great things happening. The economy is incredible. We're negotiating and having tremendous success with China. And I find China, frankly, in many ways, to be far more honorable than Brian, Chuck, and Nancy. I really do. I think that China is actually much easier to deal with than the opposition party.
Given how the meeting went yesterday, are you now going to decide to declare a national emergency? Is that your only option left?
I have the absolute right to declare a national emergency. The lawyers have so advised me. I'm not prepared to do that yet, but if I have to, I will. I have no doubt about it, I will. I have the absolute right to declare. This was passed by Congress. So when you say was it passed by Congress, it was. Other presidents have used it, some fairly often. I have the absolute right to declare a national emergency. I haven't done it yet. I may do it. If this doesn't work out, probably I will do it. I would almost say definitely. This is a national emergency.
Why haven't you declared a national emergency?
Because I would like to do the deal through Congress, and because it makes sense to do it through Congress. But the easy route for me would have been call a national emergency and do it. And I will tell you, this is a tremendous crisis at the border. Look at President Obama's statements from the past, numerous statements where he calls it a crisis. This is a crisis. You have human trafficking. You have drugs. You have criminals coming in. You have gangs, MS-13. We're taking them out by the thousand and bringing them back. This is a crisis. And they don't come in at the checkpoint, which they do also, but they go in between the checkpoints where you don't have any barriers.
Mr. President?
Go ahead, you have it on.
National emergency, if this doesn't work out, you don't get an agreement, you will do it, or are you still thinking about it?
If we don't make a deal, I mean, I would say 100%, but I don't want to say 100% because maybe something else comes up. But if we don't make a deal, I would say it would be very surprising to me that I would not declare a national emergency and just fund it through the various mechanisms. And by the way, there's more than one mechanism. There's various mechanisms. And the lawyers tell me 100%. It would be nice if we could make a deal. But dealing with these people is ridiculous. I don't know if they know how to make a deal. We need, and I'll tell you what, a lot of Democrats, I was looking at numbers, a lot of Democrats agree, Steve, we need national security. And the only way you have it, is you have to have a strong border. And the only way you have a strong border is you need a wall or you need some kind of a steel, go ahead, corridor.
There are pictures this morning.
You need a steel barrier. And if you don't have a steel barrier or a concrete wall, forget it.
There are pictures this morning showing steel barrier wall being sawed straight through. What good is a steel wall if they can saw through it?
Well, that's a wall that was designed by previous administrations. There's nothing that can't be penetrated, but you fix it. But it's a very difficult thing to do. But that's a wall, and they have other walls. We have many walls under consideration. Even concrete. There's acid that can go through concrete. But what you do is you fix it. And it very much limits. It's very, very hard. The wall that we're doing is very, very hard to penetrate.
Mr. President, you walked out on the Democrats. Are you going to bring them back? How can you get a deal if you're not talking?
Well, the news incorrectly reported, because I said, well, if we go back and everything's peachy-dory and you say we'll talk over 30 days, at the end of 30 days, are you going to give us great border security, which includes a wall or a steel barrier? She said no. I didn't pound on tables. I didn't raise my voice. That was a lie. What you should do is give them Pinocchios, because if you ask Mike Pence and you ask Kevin McCarthy, you ask anybody in the room, they will say, because I know if I do that, you're going to report it. But you guys report it anyway because you're fake news. But let me just tell you something. I very calmly said, if you're not going to give us strong borders, bye-bye, and I left. I didn't rant. I didn't rave like you reported. Some of the newspapers, and then Schumer always has his standard lie. He had a temper tantrum. I don't have temper tantrums. I really don't. But it plays to his narrative, but it's a lie. I very calmly walked out of the room. I didn't smash the table. I did have, but I didn't smash the table. And that's the story. So all of that narrative is a lie.
Well, my question is, how can you get a deal if you're not talking to them? You walked out.
Well, we'll see.
Are you going to bring them
Let
back?
me tell you, I think there's far more pressure on them because the people of our country want security. We want to be a secure country. We don't want drugs pouring in. Most of our drugs come in through the southern border, and they don't come in through the portals. They come in between the portals where you have no barrier. Say it. Well, you know who has more human pain? The parents of people who had children killed by an illegal immigrant that should have never been in the country. You know who has more human pain? The husband that lost the wife, or the wife that lost the husband to an illegal immigrant that came in 5 or 6 times that shouldn't be here. That's the human pain. And the people that will be paid, but maybe a little bit later, those people, many of them are on my side. They want to see border security. And by the way, NBC may be the most dishonest reporters of all time. I have no idea what they're doing. Okay, go ahead. Next question. What? I can't hear you. We have plenty of funds. If there's a national emergency, there's a lot of funds. I just want to say, if we declare a national emergency, we have a tremendous amount of funds. Tremendous. If we want to do that, if we want to go that route. Again, there is no reason why we can't come to a deal. But you have another side that doesn't care about border security. The Democrats, which I've been saying all along, they don't give a damn about crime. They don't care about crime. They don't care about gang members coming in and stabbing people and cutting people up. They don't care about crime. And if they're not going to care about crime, then I agree. They shouldn't do anything at the border. But I care about crime, and I care about drugs. We're spending a fortune on trying to stop drugs, and they pour in through the border. But I see it more now than ever before. The Democrats don't care about the border, and they don't care about crime. Say it. Oh, it began a long time. Ask President Obama. Obama used to call it a crisis at the border, too. I think he said it in 2014. Look, you can all play cute. And I'd say 80% of you are possibly in coordination with the opposition party. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. All you have to do is look at the borders, rent a helicopter, except you don't want to know the truth, and watch. And by the way, here's the story. There is another major caravan forming right now in Honduras. And so far, we're trying to break it up. But so far, it's bigger than anything we've seen. And a drone isn't going to stop it. And a sensor isn't going to stop it. But you know what's going to stop it in its tracks? A nice, powerful wall.
Mr. President, you would like to Mr. President.
The buck stops with everybody. They could solve this problem in literally 15 minutes. We could be back. We could have border security. They could stop this problem in 15 minutes if they wanted to. I really believe now that they don't want to. I really believe that. I really believe that they don't care about crime. I really believe this. The Democrats don't care about crime. They've been taken over by a group of young people who, frankly, in some cases I've been watching, I actually think they're crazy. But they've been taken over by a group that's so far left, I really don't think they care about crime. And you know, sadly, they're viewing this as the beginning of the 2020 presidential race, and that's okay with me. But they have been taken over by a group of people that don't care about gangs, they don't care about human trafficking and drugs, they don't care about anything. I'll tell you what, they have gone crazy.
Mr. President, how much longer is this shutdown going to last?
We have to get a win, or I'll have to go national security. One or the other. Either we're going to win. Either we're going to win or make a compromise. I'm okay to making a compromise. Compromise is in my vocabulary very strongly. So we're either going to have a win, make a compromise, because I think a compromise is a win for everybody, or I will declare a national.
Mr. President, do you have any reaction?
Very, very, this is a thing that the lawyers tell me is 100%. You just have to read the language. Just read the language.
Special counsel's final report, do you want that to be made public?
We'll have to see. There's been no collusion whatsoever. We'll have to see.
So on that, Mr. President, did you know that Paul Manafort was sharing polling data from your campaign with the Russians?
No, I didn't know anything about it. Nothing about it.
Mr. President, do you have any reaction to the news of Jeff Bezos' divorce and his affairs?
Well, I wish him luck.
That's it?
I wish him luck. It's going to be a beauty.
All right.
That was President Trump speaking outside the White House before departing for the U.S.-Mexico border. Seeing some fact-checking sites picking up on a couple of the president's points. Let me just quickly note two of them. One, that President Obama mentioned there was a humanitarian crisis in 2014. That seems to be accurate. President Trump, when dealing with a large number of families coming to the border and children, did mention there was a humanitarian crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border back in 2014. So that does seem to be true. On the other hand, the president said that he never said Mexico would pay for the wall with a check. He has said that Mexico would pay 100% for the wall, that there would be reimbursement. His campaign outlined a way that Mexico could make a $5 to $10 billion payment for the wall, or way to pay back for the wall. Let me see if I can find that again. 10. A way to compel steps that could be taken to compel Mexico to pay the U.S. $5 to $10 billion. So while he may not have said that they'd write a check, I'm sure people are scouring some of his stump speeches to see if that was the case. His campaign did outline a way that Mexico would be compelled to pay $5 to $10 billion to fund a border wall. So a couple points there. He also was mentioning a migrant caravans possibly forming in Honduras. It looks like Mexico's Interior Secretary has spoken a little bit about that there could be a caravan leaving Honduras in the middle of this month, but doesn't sound like it's formed or started even its entrance into Mexico at this time. The president, of course, used a caravan as a talking point in the lead up to the midterm elections and in justifying a military presence at the border. So a couple quick looks at some of the things the president had to say there as he was heading to Mexico. Let's get you a look at our local weather, and then we'll get you some updates on local stories. Here is a live look at the Benjamin Franklin Parkway. Currently it's 35 degrees outside, dew point is 14. Winds out of the west at 23 miles per hour. It is a gusty day out there, so if you're headed outside, make sure you grab a coat. It might be your heavy winter coat for the next couple days. It is expected, temperatures are expected to be dropping. There is a code blue in Philadelphia. Our own Sue Serio mentioned this morning on Twitter that several counties west of Philadelphia have the greatest chance of experiencing wind gusts of 50 miles per hour today. Remember, though, it'll be windy everywhere all day, and as Sue said, hope it's not trash day. The National Weather Service in Mount Holly mentioned those winds as well. This is yesterday, but they have been mentioning that light snow is possible late Saturday into Sunday as an area of low pressure tracks to our south across the Carolinas. We was talking about this on our air as well. Here's a look at our futurecast for that possible storm. Animation of where the snow could be. I believe it moves into our area after 10 p.m. Saturday night is what Scott Williams was telling us last night. You see just Saturday out around after dinner hour, looks like it's starting to move in some of the latest models. And it stays with us for part of the day Sunday. Looks like it's mostly could feel some of its effects during the Eagles game. There you see early Sunday morning. Starts to move out of our area and drop to the south a little bit for later in the day. Still in parts of Delaware and South Jersey there, Sunday at 8 o'clock. I mentioned the Eagles game, so here's a look at our coverage on Sunday. We'll start you off with Good Day Philadelphia Weekend at 7 a.m., followed by Fox News Sunday and Chris Wallace. We'll have a special Fox 29 game day. We'll have Fox 29 Game Day live at 10 a.m. as we always do. Looks like it's a little bit longer, running till 11:30. Then we have Villanova and Creighton college basketball game. Then this is a special one for sure. Good Day Game Day at 2 p.m. leading up to Fox's NFL Sunday at 4, and then the game coverage begins at 4:30 p.m. Eagles versus Saints in New Orleans. Let's go back to weather. Here's a live look looking east from our studios at 4th and Market in Old City. Here's Ultimate Doppler. You see we have had some snow and rain streaming into the area from Great Lakes. The cold air, any moisture is going to prompt some minor snow squalls and precipitation falling, so you see some of that there. Here's your current temperatures. As we said, 35 in Philadelphia, 30s across almost the entire area. Mount Pocono just 21 degrees, so much chillier than it has been. I believe we got up to 46 yesterday. Your northeast temps, you see that cold air moving into northeastern United States. Lots of 20s to our north and west. Minneapolis at 15 today. Yesterday at this time it was 7, I believe, so things looking up a little bit there, but cooler temps across much of the east. Just 60 down in Miami, 53 in Tampa, 49 in New Orleans, 55 in Houston. Pacific Coast, 50 or below there, 50 in San Francisco, 42 in Portland. But lots of 20s and even some teens up in the plains and Great Lakes area. Chicago 18, Minneapolis 15. Here are your wind speeds right now. We're at 23 miles per hour sustained. Let me double check, make sure these are current. I believe they are. 23, as we mentioned, sustained. Teens a little bit to our north, 26 in Mount Pocono, and along the coast, 25 in Atlantic City, 23 in Wildwood. Here are your gusts, 31 miles per hour in Philadelphia, 40 in Millville, 41 in Atlantic City. So that's certainly going to create some wind chill. Let's show you those figures. Feels like just 23 outside right now in Philadelphia. Only 4 in Mount Pocono. So bundle up if you're headed outside for any substantial period of time. Lots of cloud cover at the moment. Visibility still pretty decent though. And here's a look at your 7-day forecast from the Fox 29 Weather Authority. Today, looks like we're getting to a high of 38, a 7 on our forecast by the numbers, just 6 for Friday. It'll be sunny and cold, 34. See, we may not get above the freezing mark there. Saturday, 32 p.m. snow begins, 22 for an overnight low, just a 5 on our forecast by the numbers. Sunday, snow showers, 33. That's your Eagles game there. Of course, that'll be played in New Orleans, but lots of folks will be out and about to watch. Monday, sunny and cold, 35 for a high. Sunny, chilled, 41. Sunny and cold, 41 again on Wednesday. There you have your forecast. Let's get you to some story we've been following since yesterday afternoon when this broke out. Manhunt is underway in South Philadelphia this morning for a man police are calling armed and dangerous. It continues this morning. They're looking for a person of interest in 2 murders and 2 crashes. Those incidents led to a number of people getting hurt, including police officers, a state trooper, and bus passengers. Police found DeJuan Robinson driving yesterday morning in Delaware. They followed him up I-95 until he crashed near the airport, causing Wilmington cruiser to flip over. A Pennsylvania state trooper and 2 Wilmington police officers were hurt. He was able to drive to Philadelphia, where he got into another crash with a SEPTA bus near Broad, Oregon, injuring a passenger. Robinson then took off on foot. Several schools were put on lockdown. The search for Robinson is citywide, and so far police say they have, I believe we do now have confirmed sightings. That's what Steve Keeley told us about this morning on our air. It appears that Robinson visited a check cashing establishment in the city. And let's show you Steve's report from this morning where he talked more about that.
There to be able to show a lot better than I can on my phone, and it's not terrific, but this is how that wanted man last looked, with a very tight under hoodie on. And I say that because we talked to the staff here at United Check Cashing, and a lovely woman named Carolyn was the one who was working yesterday when DeJuan Robinson came in right after the crash, just feet away here at Broad in Oregon, and he comes in here and he says, I need to, break a 50. And so she cashes a 50. He says he's very impatient. He's banging on the thing. He goes, change, please, change. Then he says, it's hot in here. And you can see through the door as we show it, there's a trash can on both sides under the windows. And he says it's hot in here. He takes off his jacket and just throws it in the trash. So I guess he's thinking he's going to, fake everybody. The reason he wants to take his jacket off is because cops probably know what he's wearing. He walks out of here calmly, goes down Shunk. The cops come in here, the detectives, and they got canines. The canines pick up the scent of the discarded jacket, and they follow it down South Watts Street. And at the other end of South Watts, you pick up in South Philly, Shunk Street. And that leads them to Nick's Deli on Shunk Street, and that's where the surveillance is working. The surveillance not working here at United Check Cashing, but they get a picture of him at Nick's Deli, and at least they know what he looks like, or at least what he was wearing when they last saw him. Unfortunately, nobody saw him since he left Nick's Deli yesterday, and everybody there super cooperative with us, super cooperative with the police, and they didn't even know what they were dealing with. And the guy goes in there, he's got $2 in his hand, he picks a ginger ale out of the cooler, and then he says, "Do you guys sell scissors?" And of course, they don't sell scissors. Nobody knows what he wanted to do with scissors. Maybe he wanted to cut the hood off the shirt or cut the sleeves off the shirt to make that look different. That's just me using some common sense, thinking, what would he want with scissors? But everybody lost him after that. He puts the drink back, doesn't even buy anything, and walks out of the store. The canines lose the scent. Police lose him, and he's still on the run. That's the last place he was spotted. And this picture that we're showing you, the last way he looked when he was in South Philly yesterday morning, guys.
Wow.
Yeah, thanks for those details, Steve.
It's amazing.
Yeah, great work getting that picture.
Great work with the police and their canine unit as well. All right, well, Sue's going to do a quick forecast before we get.
That was our Steve Keeley talking about the search for DeJuan Robinson. We'll continue to keep you posted here at Fox 29 whenever we get any updates. We have got the latest on our website, fox29.com, as well as post updates to Facebook, and we'll bring you any live events where police discuss the latest in their search for him. Also earlier this morning, this one's from Delaware County. Parents and community leaders are demanding answers from school officials following an incident involving a man with a gun inside a school. Our Sabina Kuriakos was right outside Park Elementary in Darby Borough and has this report.
And today's meeting is going to be behind closed doors, but we do know that Senator Anthony Williams is going to be there, as will William Penn, Superintendent of Schools, Jane Ann Harbert. Now, again, the meeting today is going to be private, but take a look at this video from last night's meeting. It was very public. It had parents and members of the Delaware County Black Caucus. They were demanding to know how a man with a .49 caliber loaded handgun and a bag full of drugs, according to police, was given access to Park Lane Elementary School last Friday. Got very emotional at last night's meeting. One mom in particular stood out to us. Listen to what she had to say.
My son, he's scared to go to school, and I'm scared for him to go to school. I expect him to be in good hands when he's going to school. Not hearing over the news that is an armed, dangerous man with a gun and drugs on him at my son's school.
We are not here to say to any person that they should be fired or released, but we are going to be very clear. There needs to be retraining.
And the photo you're looking at right now is the man who police arrested, 21-year-old Nazir Sabri. As you heard there, Senator Anthony Williams mentioning that he's calling for retraining of staff in the district at today's closed-door meeting. He's also going to be asking for a district-wide audit on preparedness because, of course, the big question here is why existing security protocols were not followed last Friday here at the school. And one of the questions also surrounding that includes why the principal never hit the panic button when they realized that a suspicious man was in the building. So bringing it back out here to Park Lane Elementary School. Again, that private meeting between local leaders and district staff is going to take place sometime today. We're not quite sure on the exact time, but we are expecting some updates after that meeting takes place. For now, in Darby Borough, Sabina Kuriakos, Fox 29 News.
That was Sabina's report on the gun in the school there in Darby. I want to show you a little bit of video that Skyfox got this morning. This was a fire the crews responded to at a KFC location in Wilmington, Delaware. Flames broke out inside the restaurant on the 1900 block of Lancaster Avenue around 8:30 a.m. Skyfox was over the scene as firefighters worked to get the fire under control, and smoke poured from the roof. No injuries have been reported at this time. This is a developing story. We'll have any updates for you that we get on fox29.com and also on the Fox 29 News at 5, 6, 10, and 11 tonight. Looks like it's both a Taco Bell and a KFC there. Standalone building there with both of those businesses in the location. We're going to be signing off shortly. Let's take one more look at the Ben Franklin Parkway here. You can see our camera bouncing around a bit with the wind. Remember, if you're headed outside today, bundle up. It is chilly and windy out there. Fox 29 Sue Serio said there were wind gusts. There could be wind gusts up to 50 miles an hour today in some of our western counties. See if I can show you a still image here of those alerts. I believe the beige color there will be your wind advisory. So make sure you bundle up if you are headed outside today. And for the foreseeable future, it is going to be pretty cold. We'll give you one last look at our Weather Authority forecast. Oops. Rolled that right into the background. There are your watches and warnings. And here's your forecast. 38 today, a 7 on our forecast by the numbers, but you see the drop in temperatures. We're going from 38 today to 34 tomorrow to 32 and 33 over the weekend. And we warm up slightly again for next week, but we're not going to get above 41 according to our forecast here for over the next week. So time to dust off that winter coat if you haven't had it out recently. Hat and gloves for your walk to work or travels wherever you're headed. Oh, I did have one more report I wanted to get you. This is seeing it now still in my clip playout. This is as the government shutdown continues, many federal workers are turning to GoFundMe. And Sears may
U.S. investors watching Washington, China, and the Fed after 4 days of gains. The Dow, NASDAQ, and S&P 500 all up on Wednesday. As the partial government shutdown continues, some federal government workers and contractors open GoFundMe accounts to raise money. There are currently about 1,000 GoFundMe campaigns raising more than $100,000 collectively. And the shutdown also impacting the initial public offering market. The partial closure of the SEC is reportedly forcing some companies seeking to go public, such as Uber and Lyft, to push back their plans. Sears reportedly receiving a last-minute offer yesterday that could save the retailer from liquidation. Reuters is reporting that Chairman Eddie Lampert's hedge fund, ESL Investments, came through with a revised version of his proposal to acquire about 425 stores, keeping 50,000 employees working. Lampert submitted a revised $5 billion offer after his initial $4.4 billion bid was rejected. Sears will consider the new bid during a bankruptcy auction on January 14th. For more, log on to foxbusiness.com. In New York, I'm Tracy Carrasco.
We'll give you one more live look here at conditions around the region. Here is Blue Mountain, where you see a snowboarder coming down the mountain there. It's getting cold enough for a lot of these outdoor winter activities. Here's another view of the one of the ski trails. Thank you again for joining us on Fox 29 News Now. We're here weekdays after Good Day Philadelphia. Try to bring you live events from around the area and country and updates to stories ongoing. Of course, we'll continue to follow that manhunt in South Philadelphia for the suspect who caused 2 crashes and was apparently wanted in 2 cases out of Delaware. Any new information we get, we'll have posted for you immediately on fox29.com. Have a great day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow on Friday.